Okay. Yeah, so if you don't want to be recorded, you can always kind of turn your camera off at this point. Feel free to do that. Yeah, so Michele is going to talk to us about how to form alliances and how to be less male leaders. So he's going to talk to us a little bit about how climate groups can sometimes come across as very male dominated. And I think that's something I'm really looking forward to hearing about. And also a little bit about media strategy in Italy as well. They've had phenomenal success with getting the press cover them. And I think that there's, probably got some really good advice for us. Yeah, so that's about it. I think we'll just go straight to breakout rooms. Andy's gonna take care of that. And yeah, just meet and greet each other and, chat about how your day is going at this point.
So maybe
that would be really 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes. Cool. Jump in.
Jump in.
Room 4.
Thanks. Mm-hmm. Okay, so John, are you there somewhere?
I am filling in for John. He's not feeling super great at the moment.
Okay.
But yeah. So
okay, you ready to go, Donald?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great.
All right. Hey, that's me in the spotlight. I'm sure that's a song. So brief update on Declare Emergency, which is the project we're working on here in the United States. It's a civil resistance group working up to massive disruption in prolonged and indefinite roadblocks until we get our demand met. It's the whole, action, mobilization, rinse, wash, repeat idea, build, longer. The dilemma demand for Biden is to declare a climate emergency. He should have done it on day one. It's more pressure and rationale for him to do it now. He's been trying to do some legislative stuff, and it's always not working. I don't think it's very reliable to expect it to work. He can declare climate emergency and redirect a lot of defense budget funds to, clean energy, microgrids, etc. So it's, it's a winnable demand. The whole thing. I think. If not, let me know. Let's see. This whole thing, the actions began for Declare Emergency on December 8th. And the second iteration began on January 20th. There have been 20 arrests to date. There were 3 actions, arrestable actions in December, 3 arrestable actions in January. We went from 3 arrestables in December, 7 arrestables in January. And at the end, in January, we dumped coal onto a high traffic road. So that's pretty cool. There was regarding like how protests in DC often works, they aim for like companies that are the bad guys or the White House or the Capitol. We focused on uncommon, more disruptive areas, folks where the general public is. We've gotten some great photos and videos out of it. 3 of us have spent the night in jail at least once, and jail overnight here in DC is pretty bad. I've been to jail in Florida, in the state of Washington, and yeah, this is either my least favorite or one of my least favorite places to be in jail. Thus far, the overnight jail is just a one-time place, so none of us have been more than one night in jail. I think if we go more than one night, they're going to move us to a different jail, and maybe that'll be better, but I don't know yet. But yeah, for some odd reason, I don't know if this says something bad about protests in DC, Washington, DC in general, that, you know, the US's capital. But, you know, I guess that's unheard of that people stay overnight in jail for DC protest actions. But we've done it 3 times for each of these arrests now. I've done it once, or I've done it thrice. Others have done it once. One person's done it once and one person's done it twice. Also, 2 people were interviewed by the FBI. Fun times. The second time in January that there were arrests, 2 of the 3 arrestables were taken to a room by people in plain clothes, a couple people in plain clothes, like an interrogation room, and they talked with them. Basically, you know, we know you guys aren't violent, but we're looking for folks, you know, who might, you know, we might be interested in. Maybe you're connected with them or something like that, that sort of thing. So I don't know if anybody else, I don't know of anybody else who has done that. Maybe they haven't talked about it. But if we're getting that kind of attention, I think we might be on the right path. I think that's a good sign. We don't yet know 100% sure what the connection is, though, what they're fishing for, or if they're just fishing. We are now mobilizing for March. We're going to speak more on that in a bit. But sitting on the road until the second warning has been given has been effective at motivating a few people to move up into arrestable roles. We've had somebody who was, and I'm not naming names, I can if people want me to, but we had somebody who sat in the road non-arrestable in December, who came in January and risked arrest that time. And then we had somebody in January who was just going to sit in the road for one action, but then decided, no, I'm going to stay, and got arrested there. And the way it works in DC is they usually give you 3 warnings and then they arrest you at the 3rd warning. So you can stay until a 2nd and then leave and you'll be fine. The problems, actually, let's go ahead and try to figure out how best to structure this. Let's go ahead and hear from Paul. Like, why did you join? That's okay.
Okay, hi, I'm Paul. I'm from Washington also. I was active in XRDC for a long time. And then these guys came to town, and it was in December, and I didn't know who the hell they were. But they needed a police liaison, and they were kind of doing it by the seat of their pants. So I volunteered, and that day we blocked a very busy street. And some drivers pulled them off the road, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God. But apparently that's what they wanted, which I found out later. And what was inspiring was them crawling back on the road afterwards. That was really inspiring. And so when they came back, I decided to have a more active role. We definitely need, in this country, it's so dysfunctional. Our government is totally dysfunctional. You can't get anything done. The petroleum and coal interests, they control everything. We're not going to get anywhere using the same old tactics. So yeah, we need to escalate it a little bit, which is what we're doing. And I was one of the people who got interviewed by the FBI as well. I haven't been arrested, like I told the group, the Breakout group, I took since 1989, and I'm sure like there's very few people on this call who were born in 1989. But anyway, I felt like somebody in Breaking Bad, if you've ever seen that show, because they shackled us to the floor. You know, it was ridiculous. So anyway, I'm glad to be here, and yeah, that's it.
All right, thanks, Paul. And so moving on to some of the problems we have in the US right now is there's a bit of insularity in the country. Putting on talks has been a process of waking people up to our immense moral responsibilities to the rest of the world as people in one of the highest emitting, most powerful nations on earth. What we do here can actually make a massive difference in reducing the suffering of billions. And I think that's a hard pill to swallow. It's a lot of people in the US just don't think beyond the US. And that's something we try and make sure that we do and incorporate in the talks more. It's like, it's not just about us. There's so many people relying on us. And, you know, when we say, what about China or something, right? Like every other country in the world is saying, what about the US? So we're like, we can't drop the ball here. And we need to make sure people are aware that people are relying on us and counting on us. And it's something we need to work through, and we're going to work through. The climate movement is, I might be hyperbole to say it, but essentially nowhere nationally. There's a lot of divisions and gossip which take up the air in the room, prevent us from coming together on high-level resistance. We face this and criticism of our tactics and our demand. Similar to how, when MLK did the, the bus boycotts in Montgomery, I think. And the Freedom Riders, when they did their trip through the South, there was a lot of, at first, like, thinking like what are you guys doing? This isn't the right time to do it, that sort of thing. But they did it. It started getting attention. It started working. So, that's kind of where, that's just a usual pattern of these sorts of things. For declare emergency, there's there's elements to the 6-month plan, which are important, which many of you might already know, given the kind of like, we're all kind of following the same sort of structure, if I understand it right. We have a winnable demand. There's the declare climate emergency. That's a pretty well debated, well discussed, well hacked away at refined demand, which is something that the president can do. It's something that Occupy Biden, another organization in Delaware, has taken up, and it's a demand that People versus Fossil Fuels took up, one of the two that they took up back in mid-October. It was a pretty big event there. And so we've got the winnable demand. And again, legislatively, climate's going nowhere. He can do stuff executively, the president. So we want him to do that when it declares a climate emergency. We've got a small group coordinating. That way it doesn't have large meetings where lots of people talking, not lots getting done. We did have, I feel like, maybe a couple meetings which got a little too big, but we can still, section them out into groups going forward and make sure that things are manageable. We are doing repetitive disruptive actions, roadblocks over and over. Our next will be, as all of yours, I'm sure, in March, late March. And mobilization is also something that we're taking into account. We're doing the flyering, the leafleting, canvassing. We came up with a pretty good strategy, I feel like, for the last mobilization period. But then we had to go right into actions right after that. So now that we did actions, we got to get back into the swing of things with mobilization. But I think we had something good set up there. As far as coalition building is concerned, if I'm going too long or anything, let me know. But as far as coalition building is concerned, the climate movement is largely dominated in the US by white middle-class people, and that has to change. DC is a very segregated city, and that is something to keep in mind. We need to think hard about how to outreach to the Black population and build an intersectional organization with other Black-led groups and Indigenous groups of people across class, color, the gender spectrum, and age range. I think we have a good mix across the age range at the moment, and gender too a bit. We also will be focusing on mobilizing university students, though, because I know that's an important part of at least what Roger's pushing for. I think maybe strategies for other groups here too. What wasn't working, and we've got some good follow-through, good results in the university outreach we did last mobilization period. What wasn't working was our number of arrestables could have been higher. Our median mobilization strategy also need to be better this time around. We were able to get good audiences for our talks, largely through activist networks, but we need more mobilizing of local ordinary people. And so we will be doing mass flyering this time around, which I think, if these notes are correct, I'm assuming we're going to go based on that Portland model, which Roger talks about. For media, we were scrambling at the last minute to write advisories and releases. We didn't get enough attention from the press, which also plays into the number of arrestables. People want to do this thing if they think it will mean something. And some people are like virtue ethics, like, I'm just going to do it because it's the right thing to do. Some people are consequentialists, like, I need to see that this is going to get some results. And so the better we can address all that, the more we can maximize the numbers. We had an incredible cameraman and videographer, one photo person, one video person. And the videographer will be making a documentary about us and showing it at a film festival in April. So that's pretty much everything on my end, I believe. Is there anything else I need to cover? Any questions or anything?
No, I think that was really great, Donald, and thanks to Paul also. And I'm just wondering, does anybody have any questions for Donald or comments at this point? Please raise your hand or put them in the chat. Yes, Bert?
Yeah, I would like you to comment more on your mobilization strategy. You said you had a mobilization strategy that was working and then went into actions. Is it appropriate for you to give us some detail on that mobilization strategy?
Sure, I would say, I put all my props in the car, but basically, I think what we wound up doing is wherever we find our location. Well, for one thing, universities were pretty effective. That might not necessarily address the class or race, unless it's a historically Black college or something like that, but that doesn't necessarily address the class issue. But wherever you find your location, have a clipboard. And what I found was, rather than passing out flyers, which were often like a crutch, I would say basically, hey, are you concerned about climate change? Something like that for the opener. And then they'd say something like, yeah, or something like that. We'd say, we're gonna have a presentation about what's going on, what we can do about it, and how to get involved, that sort of thing. If I can get your number, I can text you the link for it. And if you're confident enough to just leave it at that, let it hang, then cool, do it. Oftentimes I would say, if I can get your number, I can text you the link. Or if you want, you can scan this QR code, and I had it cut out on a little cardboard square, and it'll take you to a form, a Google form, where you can fill it out and you can choose which presentation you'd like to attend. So that route was, I think, the best way to get people to come to events, or even at the very least, just be more interested and get more involved. And then usually giving out a flyer, I found, when doing on the ground canvassing, was like, they can just take it and leave. Whereas this, it takes them straight to a website, or if I get their number, I get their number so I can talk to them later about it. So that's, I think, a pretty handy way of doing things for on the ground canvassing, at least. So just do that more often. Before that, we were trying out, giving out flyers and other things, posting on the doors. We might do those things a little bit still, but I think we kind of worked our way into that route, which is like, ask for the number so you can text them the link, or just have them scan the link on a QR code, and they'll fill out the form, they'll be involved. Higher chance that they will than if you just give them a flyer. Is that good? Sufficient?
Yeah, that gives some details to what you were doing. Here where I live, we've tried variations on all of that, and the sort of the return rate, if you want to call it that, people who actually follow through on, like you're talking about, getting the phone number, people who actually follow through after that is very, very low. And we've had meetings and people say they're going to show up and they don't. We seem to have hit a barrier where people say, yeah, we're interested, but don't want to do anything.
So the folks who get the numbers, or if they sign up, you have their information, and then you follow. Do you guys do follow up afterwards too, right? And then they're just minimally.
Yeah,
involved.
exactly. There is follow up, and they just disappear. And,
yeah,
it's hard to know what they're thinking when they won't talk to you.
Yeah, I guess
why they're not responding positively. If you don't have any feedback from them.
Yeah, I guess what I would recommend is just try doing it, you know. We have a program, I think, where like the day of, we remind them of the presentation. Maybe right after they sign up, we thank them for signing up. And then after the presentation, we kind of, you know, give them a form to sign up for which roles they want to be in, how they want to be involved. And then if they haven't filled out that form, we say, hey, noticed you haven't filled out the form yet. Here it is, something like that. And eventually, this is just something that comes with being a you know, volunteer organization. Not everyone's going to follow through. I'd say if you give someone like 3 times and they are not responsive, maybe after that 3rd time, you can be like, send them like, hey, I, you know, if there's anything you were interested, you expressed interest, something like that. Don't seem to be that interested now. It might be a better way to say it, but if there's anything we did that we can improve, let us know. But thank you for, you know, being interested, and hopefully you're getting involved in some way.
Yeah,
like
you're recommending we be way more persistent than we are being. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Donald. And I think, and thank you too, Bert. I think I'm going to kind of move on now to the next part of the agenda, which is an update from Andy about Fireproof Australia. And I might just suggest that if anybody has any other questions for Donald, you might put them in the chat there, and Donald can kind of keep an eye on chat and stuff directed at him. So you good to go, Andy?
Sure, yeah. Just briefly, pretty excited here. We have finally got our project pretty much clear, although ironically, a slight name change might happen to Fireproof Oz, because there is a similar campaign, or not, well, another group called Blockade Australia, and they've got very similar tactics. They're a bunch of friends, really. But we've realized we want to keep brand separation because we're going to be acting in a similar place around a similar time. So anyway, Fireproof Australia might be Fireproof Oz, which kind of works in the Australian cultural landscape. We love to shorten everything anyway. But yeah, there's a few people from Fireproof Australia here today, which is good. And I guess just like what we're up to at this point is we've set up a company so that we can receive money and move it around really easily, hopefully. And we have a house in Sydney so that basically the core team are all going to be living together, and it's a big house and more people can come and stay as well. Obviously the weather's pretty good, so people can sleep in tents in the backyard. But that's basically a key part, is to get to in-person organizing. And yeah, we are going on 2 separate tours, one like north of Sydney, one south, to visit all the sort of XR groups that we've mobilized or know of in the past. So working from a lot of personal relationships, giving them the new talk, inviting them to get involved in what we're calling our concentrated action phase, or CAP. And that's starting 1st of April. And but then the really exciting thing is, yeah, we've set our goal of 30 talks in Sydney based on the so-called Portland method, with flyers blue tacked to doors. And that means 5,000 flyers per 30 people in a room, to 2 people prepared to do what it takes. And so we've got 150,000 flyers to deliver, and we've mapped out the sort of the areas in Sydney that have the most like XR people, and also the most green voters, etc., to work out like the ideal suburbs to go to. And it's pretty sweet. I'm quite excited. We're living like close by to the start of that space. So this week we're going to start really planning and just get onto it and start rolling. And we're going to have, so we've got these 2 tours that are happening simultaneously, regionally, and then we're going to start the flyer method and have mostly on in-person talks, but probably like 2 online talks a week. And this Wednesday, we're doing our speaker training. So we've created a talk that's, you know, as emotional and true as necessary, like truthful and emotional to the max. And we've got a few new speakers coming in, and we're using it as a step for future spokespeople as well to learn, just to get familiar with like the content. And I think what's really, so our campaign, maybe like Danny or Violet would like to speak to what our demands and like the reason why we're going with them, if I may invite you. Otherwise, I'm happy to go on.
Yeah, I'd be happy for Danny to take it if you're ready, Danny. I've already spoken with this crew once last week, but so
we always put Danny on the spot.
They put me forward because I'm lazy. So yeah, so we are really taking on board the fact that the demands need to be relevant to us, need to be achievable. Because I think that's a huge, oh, sorry, I've got no light on here, have I? Oh, blind people, we just don't care what you sighted people see. Yeah, so we're going for demands that really suit Australia. So we're looking at core demands of that the government must fund a sovereign firefighting fleet, an aerial fleet, because we've got 1 aerial tanker for the whole country that we borrow pretty much. And all of the surveys, the fire chiefs, everybody's been talking about how important that is. The second one is, I haven't had coffee, actually. Yes, I have. So Violet, why am I feeling the second thing?
yeah, I'll do the second demand because it's so close to my heart, which is smoke-proofing schools.
Thank you.
Which, yeah, is so important because they did a study saying that they were going to do it, and they did it in one state but not the other. So we've specifically targeted one demand at federal government and one at state because we've got a federal election going on at the moment. So we want the governments to both be able to respond. And the third is to rehome our fire affected victims within 2 years, because there are people who've gone through COVID and are still living in tents. So it's super important.
And I'd add to the second one is that we also are asking them to do the same thing, not just for schools, but for aged care facilities and for disability support facilities as well.
So the general term is like Fireproof Australia. It's our catchy name, and the sort of first demand is like catchy thing to get an Australian-owned aerial firefighting fleet. And this really speaks to the fact that our bushfire seasons are overlapping with the Northern Hemisphere. And currently we borrow planes from the Northern Hemisphere, and the Black Summer fires started in winter. So you can't just get extra planes at the drop of a hat. But all of the demands all tie together with relating to fire, relating to the betrayal of our government. And what we're trying to do is absolutely wedge them. You know, it's not a typical stop fossil fuels kind of thing. They know how to defend themselves against that. It's like a cultural thing about people protecting their lives and the lives of their children and the lives of their community that they love and all this stuff.
So I will put in something different from this campaign to previous these demands are they're reformist. They're like they're things that mitigate for the collapse that's happening rather than stopping the collapse itself. So that's a very different angle, and it will be good to get data on how that goes.
And is there anything?
Okay, there's just a question there from Connie. She's asking, when is the first action for you in Australia starting? And I think somebody just put in 1st of April, but I think that that was Sweden who jumped in there, and I think the question was for you, Australia.
Yeah, so we're going to run these great courage in action trainings, which will take the place of NVDA. And it's called Courage in Action. And then we want to roll them straight from that into sitting on the road within 2 weeks of them getting a flyer. And so the first actions will start in February as we're building culture, but the like CAP, as we call it, concentrated action period, starts 1st of April. Yeah.
So the aim is that people are getting flyers. They won't necessarily say Fireproof Australia. They might be this generic climate, be scared flyer. But meanwhile, they've started to build this attention of people blocking the freeway every Monday in Sydney. And so people who are coming in will know what it looks like and will demonstrate from the front as well. So it's going to be quite integrated, like the whole action mobilization media thing. And training. So training Sundays, the next morning you're sitting on the freeway.
Okay. Yeah, I think we'll move on now, and I just want to thank Violet and Andy and Danny. That was really cool. And I'm going to pass it on now to Thibault from France, who's going to tell us about their new campaign. You there, Thibault?
Yeah.
Okay,
Can you hear
cool.
me? Yep, great. Hi everyone. So our new campaign. So basically, we are at the stage of having the rough outline of the campaign planned out. What we try to do was to like sum up kind of the key criteria, kind of the common culture that we all have here around what we're trying to do, to put that in a document and to really share it across our networks in order to recruit people for creating a core team, because at the moment it was like just 2 or 3 of us and not with a whole lot of time. So the idea really was to build up the team, the core team, the extended team, so that we can actually get some stuff done. And so rather than making a very detailed plan and trying to find people, we did like a first draft with without choosing a specific demand, but we decided that we shortlisted some demands from our citizen assembly, because we had a citizen assembly last year, and our president rejected almost all of the measures that they offered. So we decided that we would kind of ask that we would have our media, like our messaging around basically we had a legitimate citizen assembly, all the measures got rejected, and the French government got condemned for inaction by one of our own courts. So it's really in a very precarious position, because it's the whole like legal illegal thing is very blurry, because it's been condemned by its own courts. And so us breaking the law to actually enforce the law that is not being enforced in our country, using a demand that was made by a legitimate citizen assembly that he said he would take and that he didn't take. So anyway, the whole ground is very fertile for that kind of thing. And but our main focus was on finding a team that's in the same spirit, that want to do repetitive, high-level civil disobedience actions that target the public, and to agree on that, to have some kind of a DNA that we all agree on. And so that's what we did a bunch of interviews with like 30 people last week, and now we have like 5-6 people who are willing to be in the core team, and we're going to have like 20 people who are willing to be in the extended team and create the working groups and all of that. So we're still at the structuring phase, but we're going to pick our demand and make our proper calendar with the iterations in the upcoming 2 weeks. And yeah, actually initially we thought of only the iteration 2, which was like in May, of trying to have 50 to 100 people doing incident Britain kind of stuff. But then after chatting with people and also reading some documents, we're kind of agreeing in the team that we should have a first iteration that will be earlier, much smaller scale. And that's what we're having some debate around, and I'd be curious to know what you think about it. Because basically we wanted to have the wave of action, and we have our presidential election. Yeah, that's the thing. And this year is like the whole political system of France is on fire, because we're going to change president or renew our president, and we're going to change our whole legislative assembly, etc. So what we wanted to do was basically to wait until the election is done, which is late April, and then go, okay, first week of the president. Now we're late on our schedule, so you need to start with what you've started. Like you need to start with the easiest stuff that was rejected. So here it is, our demand. You've got 1 week to say what you're going to do about it. No reaction, and then we start. So the whole new mandate of the president will start with this wave of action. But now we're going to do a pre-phase of that, which will be a smaller iteration, which will be around March, which will be in the midst of the last weeks before the election. So the media space will be very saturated with the campaign. Everybody's going to be talking about immigration because that's what everybody talks about in France during our campaign, like basically like Muslims and the whole you know what I'm talking about. And the whole debate is really around identity, etc. And there's nothing being talked about around ecology. So we don't know whether we actually start our imagining it's Renovate France campaign in March and start doing some actions with the tagline Renovate France, etc. But we're not sure how much that's going to be heard in the middle of that thing to go for a very niche topic when everybody's going to be talking about macro scale elements, or whether we just do a first round of action with a different demand, which would be like less structured and more like, hey, you should we should have a proper debate with the candidates around the environment and what's our plan, a bit like what the Germans did with Henning and the hunger strike. So we have two models now. We don't know whether we should do first ask for a debate and for a plan, and then after the election go for, okay, we're going to ask for a renovation, or whether we should start straight away with renovation like in March, which will make it a bit probably less audible. And but the downside if we start with another demand is that then we're going to have to change name probably. And then we're going to do a first thing with like Last Generation, which is kind of our starting name. And then we're going to change to like Renovate France. And so anyway, we're in the middle of that. There's the pros, there's the cons, and we're going to have to decide. So I'd be curious to know what some of you guys might think about that.
Okay, let's open it up then to people who would like to respond to some of the concerns that Thibault has been expressing there. Alfred, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you. So I just have a clarification question. Is your name going to be Renovate France?
So we don't know yet. At the moment, we're called Dernière Génération, Last Generation, because we needed a name for the campaign to start talking to people, and we didn't want to wait till we had the demand. But our plan was to change the name for something that has the demand in the name, like Insolite Britain, like Fireproof, etc., because we think that it's really powerful when it has the name in it. So yeah, that's the trick.
Andy, could you go ahead with your response? And then I think I can't. Yes, please. Thanks.
Well, the purpose of like the first iteration, like really small, is, it's partly for the leaders to demonstrate their commitment, to show that you're not afraid to sit on the road and to show what it looks like. And in some ways, like, I'm pretty sure Roger and other people might say, do it next week. So like, if you get in a bit earlier than March, I mean, I know it's like, consequences, etc. But like, maybe if you get in February, that might help get you more attention rather than like in late March before the election or something like that. But we're in the same boat regarding an election, but we'll be at this hopefully bigger phase, which we'll cut through. But yeah, that's all I have.
So just Andy, just to understand, you would say that it doesn't matter so much whether we have a coherent demand between the first and the second iteration, and that the main point is just that we as a group, let's say the Last Generation, we do that shit even though we ask for something that's different, and that then in some way people recognize that we're the same people doing that did that 2-week action, and we're the same ones doing the bigger cycle in May.
Yeah, I think it's partly about the motivational demonstration of, but I'm not sure how much you need to get. I think you do need to get attention, you know, like it seems like with DC, they haven't been able to get enough media attention to make people excited about that. So that's the sweet spot. But I can't really, about the demands, not so sure. Seems good to have it separate and then just go next time with Renovate.
Thibault, it looks like Bert has a response for you as well, so I'm going to pass it on to Bert.
I don't know the French political landscape very well, so I'm definitely not speaking as an expert, but I would think that anything you can do to get the climate agenda into the election campaign would be worth doing. And it doesn't matter what name you do it under. Pick the one you're already using, Dernière Génération, and go for blockages, whatever you can manage to get climate onto the agenda in the election. And good luck with that.
Thank you.
Okay, Connie.
Just about like the name and the demands.
Oh, can't hear you, Connie.
Can you hear me now? I'm having real problems with my laptop.
Not really, no.
Maybe if you took a bit closer from the microphone for a few seconds.
Okay, Connie's going to type. And while Connie is doing that, I'm going to go to Michele. It looks like he has a question or a comment for you as well.
Yeah,
Michele?
my comment is that I tried to make a comparison between what happened in Germany, what happened in Italy, and your plans. So from what I see, is evident that the most effective tactics to have a dialogue with ministers is hunger strike, because blocking roads and having dialogue with ministers is not that consequential. But the bigger tactic for having a lot of media attention is actually blocking highways, not the central roads, because like in Italy we had a big media attention because we had 74 arrestees with 9 people in 9 days. So that was the point. And the climate movement never in Italy never had an arrestees before. So it was like, what was that? So like, it depends on what you want. If you really want that meeting, go on hunger strike, because that's consequential. Okay, that's the moral crisis that you put into the component with the hunger strike. But if you do roadblocks for a meeting, okay, like we did it. I knew it was not consequential and it didn't work, but it was that we needed attention. Now we go painting the ministries, and then we will go on hunger strike, and then we will have it. But my point is that we wanted to have it not immediately, because there is no climate movement in Italy. So we really have to make it something dramatic, even for something little. So I know that hunger strike is the most effective way to have a meeting and a dialogue, but there is no climate movement in Italy. So there was never an arrestee before us in 3 years of XR. So we have to make all a drama before going on hunger strike. And I think that hunger strike will win very soon the public debate with that. It depends on what you want. If you want media attention, I think that from the comparison that we have had so far, go on highway roadblocks every day for 2 weeks.
That's what we're going to do anyway. The question is more like, do we ask for a presidential debate?
If you ask for, if you have for a debate doing roadblocks, you won't have a debate. It's almost sure, because there is no consequence. This tactic is so different. Maybe if you paint ministries, you will have a lot of reaction from politics. So we had a lot of media attention, but we had no reaction from politics. So it depends on what you want.
Cool,
okay,
thanks.
Thank you, Michele. So next up is the people from Finland who've got their hand up. There's a group of you there. You go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Well, first of all, blocking roads might get you what you want. Also, at least in Finland, we got a big debate, and then government met one of our demands, and they started this regular climate crisis media, whatever sessions or this kind of stuff. But I also agree with Michele from Italy about the point that hunger strikes are super powerful in pressuring politicians. But also, I have one question for Thibault. Is there people in your group from XR or related groups? And if yes, what are the reasons why you started the new group? You were talking about this core group and stuff. Is there some organizational ideas behind this, or yeah, that's what I'm interested.
Yeah. Okay. No, I would. So we're been in a blurry zone with XR at the moment. So we're all the initiators are from XR. We all met because we were doing some coordination. We coordinated Rebellion of One campaigns, which were a bit spread out in the world. There were other countries doing it, so we were doing that in France. And then we wanted to like do something a bit different. So when I talk about finding people, it's not so much like about creating a new movement or whatever. It's just to finding a team that's willing to like be organizing this campaign specifically. And because we were just like 2 or 3 people in that from the XR Rebellion of One coordination that started the campaign, and clearly we needed to be more than 2 or 3 and more like 5 to 8, you know, something like that. And also we needed some people to be working in the working groups. So that's what the recruiting has been about. But at the moment, we're kind of in and out of XR. We don't really know. We're telling inside that it's not really XR, and we're telling outside that it's kind of XR, or it's a bit of a mess. But I'm having those conversations with people who have been going through the whole XR, not XR crisis situations. So I've had a lot of feedback on that, which has been really useful.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Thibault. That makes it clear. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, awesome. I think we have time for one more question, and I think that's going to come from Andrea. Do you still have a question, Andrea?
Oh, it was more like a comment for Thibault. I guess there is a chance that if you challenge the candidates before the election to enact the deliberations from the citizen assembly, maybe this can enter the debate before the election. Maybe it can be taken from maybe from some greenish politician and enter somehow the debate, because it underlines the hypocrisy of the candidates and can serve. I don't know if you thought about that. I think there is a chance that it can enter the debate.
Okay, thanks. Well, at the moment, we haven't really thought of demanding something before the campaign, because it seems very unlikely that there's going to be any major like decision taken a few weeks before a new mandate begins. That's why we've really been having this thought of, it's not even to have a conversation like Henning and Leah had with the candidate. It's really more to say like, hey, everybody's talking about some like nonsense, shitty, like identity, religious matters that nobody gives a fuck about, and we're all gonna die, and we're not standing by that. So we're going on the road to tell you we care about this actually more than about identity. And since nobody's listening and you fuckers are all talking about other stuff, we're gonna block highways until you have a proper debate all between each other, and that you tell to each other what is your plan to save us. So that's kind of the spirit. I think now I'm telling it to you, I think I've got the energy, and I think I'm kind of self-convinced about the whole thing. I think the main question was around the name. And if we do that, then is it better? I guess that would be my last question. I won't take more time. Is it better to take Last Generation for this, and then to stick with Last Generation the whole way, because then we don't want to change name and have people not understand? Or is it okay to do like Last Generation and then go like last generation becomes Renovate France, and we're in renovation because blah blah blah. Which last generation Germany did not do, because they kept the last generation Germany in spite of going on food waste. So
thank you, Thibault.
you can send me
Wonderful.
in private. You can send me in private your thoughts about it, because I don't want to take more time from the group,
Yes.
but I'd be happy to hear on Signal.
Thibault, why don't you put your contact info in the chat in case anybody would like to reach out to you. I just want to give Cecile from Switzerland a chance now to introduce their brand new campaign. So over to you, Cecile.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Cecile from Switzerland. I'm quite excited to talk about our campaign today because we finished our campaign plan today, and I was listening carefully to what we said because a lot of things I recognized myself and our group in what you said. We also had some issues deciding about our name and who are we part of XR, etc., etc. And actually we really got hung up on the demand, and so it took, I think, 1 month to create a proper campaign plan with a proper demand, and we really took a lot of time to think about it. We had different ideas, but then we went through a brainstorming workshop process, etc. And I think now we have something that is quite good for our context. So yeah, I will show you, and I think you're lucky because you're the first one to see what or to hear about what we are going to do. I think even our larger affinity group has not heard from the campaign yet. So yeah, so I will share my screen. Okay. Oh, can I share the screen or? Oh, yes. Okay, thanks. So actually, it's Renovate Switzerland. So I don't know, Thibault, if you were talking about renovating France as a as a real idea about what you're going to do, but this is actually what we are going to do in Switzerland. And maybe before talking about the serious things, I can talk about the fun facts and the absurd things about this campaign name and visual. I don't know if you've ever been in Switzerland, one of you? No. So maybe you don't know our most famous soda drink, which is Rivella. And it's very famous, and like we're proud of having our proper Swiss Coca-Cola. And there's absolutely no link between the campaign and the drink, but I think it's like everyone knows it in Switzerland. So if you see this, you like it really stuck in your head and you're thinking, oh yeah, I know this thing. And yeah, it's recognizable for all the Swiss people, and this is also what we wanted. So we don't really know what is going to happen, if we are going to be persecuted by the brand, but yeah. So about our demand, so we're called Renovate Switzerland, but actually our demand is more precise, and it's about insulation. So the first one is that the Federal Council must, like we have 7 governments in Switzerland. So they must promise to produce a national plan within 4 months to fully fund and take responsibility for the insulation by 2030 of 1 million homes in Switzerland needing emergency renovation. So this is a fact. We have resources for that. It is said that 1 million homes need emergency renovation, and that this would have a huge impact by by cutting CO2 emissions and reduce energy consumption. So this is our first demand. And then we have a second one, which is like a demand more about social justice and also opening a door to transition to a new, like to a sustainable world and more sustainable also institution, which is that they must produce a plan to offer rapid and attractive training in the ecological transition industry to the thousands of unemployed and young people in Switzerland who will be needed to renovate Switzerland and give our country a future. So yes, this is about like offering the opportunity to people unemployed and to work for this huge renovation project that will be needed to insulate home, but also if we want to transit to more like to a better world, actually. Yeah. So why do we have these demands? So in 2022, the government will have to state on the fact that they did not achieve their targets for cutting CO2 emissions by 2020. So they aimed to cut them by 20%, and they only achieved to cut them by 15%. So they failed, but this is not new. So they have to do better. They have to keep their promises, and they have to do something for their people. There's also right now in Switzerland a growing concern about energy and electricity supply. So we have several experts telling that that there's danger, or they warn that we will have energy and electricity shortages in the coming years here in Switzerland, and this is a real threat. And then there is also a growing concern about having enough people to do the construction jobs, and also some concerns about young unemployed people being affected by mental health problems and these kind of things. So actually this demand is very concrete. It's very specific to the Swiss topic, to the Swiss situation, and it's a no-brainer for the population, but also for the politicians. And this really creates a dilemma for them. So this is our dilemma demand. And with this demand, so we'll have 3 iterations, and we think that we'll keep the same, or we assume to take the same demand for the 3 iteration, but maybe it can change. We really don't know how it will go, but yeah, for us, it's quite clear that we will go for this for the 8 next months. And yeah, the objectives are mainly about mobilization, demonstration effect for the people who were already engaged in XR or some other civil resistance things, but also for hopefully a broader public. Yeah, our objectives are also about communication, getting attention, telling how bad the situation is, showing how appropriate civil resistance is in the current context, and also about decredibilizing our political leaders, showing they're not able to fulfill their job, to do their job, or the things they need to do to protect the population, which is also like a way to pave the way for maybe further demand on citizens' assemblies. So about the tactics, nothing new. We're going to block motorways because we think the most disruptive thing. We also had some thoughts about blocking trains and the railways, but we did not go for this because it needs to be disruptive, but also acceptable for the population, which we thought we would not be ready for this maybe, but we don't know, maybe it could be like something for escalation, but we will go for motorways, going back every day or every second day until we're sent to prison or we win. And so we'll have 3 iterations. We'll start the mobilization phase of the first iteration next week, probably. So I'm on the 7th of February. Until then, we'll try to recruit people to get involved in working groups, taking roles. Probably, yeah, we'll call people we know, people we trust, ask them if they are motivated by this campaign. We would like to have more people working full-time or part-time, but for this we would need like some financial support. And at the moment it's a bit difficult to find it. Yes. And we'll try to start our actions with 6 to 10 people and also calling people we know. We met within XR, inviting them to a talk, giving a talk to these people instead of going on the street, but it's not very clear yet, but probably, yeah, like using our networks for that. And the first actions will start mid-March. They will last for 2 weeks. Then we'll have like, yeah, then we will have a new mobilization phase and the new iteration probably, I don't remember, but I think it's in May, probably.
Okay. Yeah, Cecile, may I just jump in? I'm sorry to interrupt, but we are running out of time, and would it be okay just to now move on to Michele to talk a little bit? Thank you so very much for talking. I've let things run on a little bit, and so Michele, could you please just maybe stick to telling us or kind of concentrating on forming alliances and how to be less male leaders? Maybe we'll keep the the talk about the media to another time. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, of course. I think that media and alliances at the moment are quite connected in Italy. So I will find a way to speak about both of them together. And now I explain you why, because I cannot talk them separately. About male leaders, I don't know why, like I just wrote on a chat, we are together, that I see that in civil resistance campaign right now, there are more male figures, but this is my impression, and I was asking if they also other people had this impression, but I have no feedback on how changing that, if it is something that has to change, like I don't know. And that's not so important to me at the moment. What I wanted to talk you is that what I'm doing with the press, because it's something new, and we will see the effects very soon. And then I have to start on the idea of forming alliances and on the Italian situation. So like the Italian situation is completely static. So there, like XR was born 2 years and a half ago, and had no arrests and no high risk action for 2 years and a half. And I think it's common also in other small countries, so that XR has never been a civil disobedience movement. And so there is no civil disobedience movements in Italy. And what about the green movements are all local and taken over by all the people, and they are all local. So caring about the pollution of that river or something very specific, they have no idea of building something hegemonic for winning. And on the other side, there is the left, the radical left in Italy, which is like becoming more green, but like say they do what they always done, so occupying building, and sometimes they make a march for the climate. So that's whatever they do, they don't really care about the climate. That's just something from brand new. So the problem in Italy is that what I see is that we start immediately as a radical flank without having a moderate flank behind. So like now we are going for the second iteration, we are slightly more person, but it's difficult because when we go into a room and we say, okay, let's go for civil disobedience, no one has ever an idea, and like they find immediately too extreme. On the other side, we have another problem. We cannot lose time with doing something which is less radical than this. So we have to create a moderate flank, but we have no time to make low-level civil disobedience action. So what I was planning was trying to bring other realities to make low-level civil disobedience with the timing of our actions. And that's not easy because there are a lot of cultural differences. So what the realities we are talking now are two kinds of reality. On one side, we have what Rupert Reed has recently called the moderate flank. So those are there are some realities in Italy that are pursuing some radical objectives, but with the moderate methods. So they have some kind of radicality. So there are some climate litigation that are serious, that want zero net emission by 2030. But those are climate litigation. So those are lawyers, and they will never get that result without civil resistance. And there are some other kind of things like that. And we want them, bring them to have civil disobedience. So what I did is I cannot go into the room and telling them immediately, let's go to have civil disobedience. So yes, I can, I did. And their reaction was like, hey, what are you saying? What are you talking about? No, I will never do that. So I went back to the room with those moderate movements, and they told, okay, we have that amount of press. So why don't we join our press offices together? And you send out our press releases, and we also talk about you that are a climate litigation against the Italian state, and we create a common framework. And what's happening now is too slow respecting up to what I would like to have, but it's coming. Now there are people into these networks of lawyers and NGO people that are saying, hey, maybe it's time, maybe we want to join civil disobedience. And so that's what we're planning. So we are planning on March. We are also connected with an NGO that cares about disabilities. So we go to make 2 weeks roadblocks on major highways again, and then we will have a serious hunger strike until hospitalization. And we are talking with an NGO that cares about disability to have disabled people to join in our hunger strike in solidarity, and create a framework against about disability and climate change and stuff like that. So what I'm seeing now that maybe will work is that we have united the press offices, and we are obliging them to send out some press releases that more or less have this narrative framework. So climate litigation is amazing, but it will never work without civil disobedience. And now I see that they are going to think that they have to make something more. And okay, I hope it will be faster. But anyway, what will be the effect, we will see soon. But right now, at the moment, I have 12 people sending out press releases for Last Generation Italy, which is good. And by the other side, it's quite depressing because it's almost the same amount of people in the street. But yes, that's what I wanted to tell you, is that you can form alliances on press and create bigger press office. I think it's a good thing, and because you will put the idea of civil disobedience through collaborating with other realities that have not that idea, and I see is working. And second, of course, the amount of press release that you will send and press result will be extremely higher because we have integrated the databases of some NGO, and they will send out our press releases about our civil disobedience actor, and that's good because like we have not that many contacts, of course. And so that was all.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you a lot, Michele. Andy, I'm going to defer to you for the moment. Should we just take a quick break and in breakout rooms, or should we move on from that?
Let's go breakouts.
Okay, great. Thank you. So if you do that, let's go to breakout rooms, perhaps for 5 minutes, and just talk about what we've heard, what appealed to us, how we might utilize it in our own campaigns, and etc. So thank you.
It seems I'm not in a breakout room. I don't know why. Oh, never mind.
Hello, Team Australia. We will leave
Hi.
at this point because it's 11 p.m. and we are very sleepy now, but we will continue in the Signal group.
You are in
Hey.
Sure. Do you know if there is people in Portugal doing
I know,
anything?
I know that in Portugal I've been a bit in touch with Extinction Rebellion. It doesn't have much weight, and in Portugal there is no penalty. They have blocked oil refinery. We can block roads. We can block bridge. There is absolutely no penalty. They are quite a few local groups, quite good, like against mining, restore forests, and all the necessities, because we are really, really vulnerable, especially the south, all the peninsula, Iberian Peninsula, and all the Mediterranean. We are already at 46.5 degrees Celsius last summer. But Extinction Rebellion still doesn't have enough weight there. And then the COVID, we were so long on lockdown. And I think maybe one reason is that in our constitution, there are so little penalties about protesting. There are long strikes, and you can block anything. You don't get any penalty. So maybe that's another reason that Extinction Rebellion doesn't have so much impact. And the Portuguese I think they are a bit particular too. They don't let anyone rule them, and they don't rule themselves. Like one of the Caesars, the Roman emperor, said, "Who are those Lusitans that they don't rule and don't let anyone rule?" So I don't know exactly what it is, but I have talked to people, and they don't seem to be very interested at all. It's quite weird for me.
Okay, so thank you so much, Cecile.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in now and welcome back everybody. We've gone a little over time, so I'm going to kind of conclude now. I want to thank you all for coming, definitely. And just as a concluding exercise, I thought it would be really great if you could all just put some feedback into the chat about how the strategy sessions are going from your point of view. Just some feedback for the organizers and the admin people. Is there something about the strategy sessions that you've really liked so far? Something that you think we could continue to do? What about something that we haven't done yet that you would really like to see these meetings cover? And that kind of thing. I think that would be really, really appreciated at this point. This is the third strategy session that we've had. I think some feedback for the organizers would be great. And while you're doing that, just thank you for coming. It's been really great for me. I love coming every fortnight and hearing and learning from you all. And toodaloo, till next time.